Hi there, I'm the chap teaching asset management. That's an elective course in Trinity term, you might have heard of it. What we learn in that course is how to invest money. We have a bit of an institutional focus, so it's more like family offices, endowment, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds we have in mind. But a number of things you will learn in this course can be useful if you ever have any money to invest yourself personally. So we will not see how you get rich by investing, but we will see how you may avoid getting very poor with your investments, and that's already a good thing. So I have only one slide. I just want to show you what we do. So we start by thinking a bit about how markets should work, and then when we do that, we see some important notions like short selling and things like that. Then we talk about how you allocate assets, and we see that if you do that quite smartly, like by diversifying, by rebalancing, by paying attention to your taxes and so on, then you can achieve already quite a lot, and often achieve much more than if you just could predict the future and knew which stock was going to go up the next year. So we're going to learn some of these techniques, and then we are going to talk about the main investment vehicles for individual investors, but it's also used a lot by institutionals. We talk about mutual funds, and we use that to think about the performance of professional fund managers. We usually conclude that it's not a very pretty picture, that they are conflicted, that they don't deliver very good results for their end investors, that they kind of hide things in many ways, and we see there the marketing tricks that are being used, etc. So that is very useful for anyone, even if you're not an institutional investor. Then we talk about factor investing and the limits to arbitrage and patterns we see in stock returns, like these sorts of things. And basically here, after 6 hours, after these 2 weeks, you should have all the tools in your hands to understand the world of asset management as it is now. And so what we do for the rest of the course basically is to bring in top speakers who will tell you more about the things they do. So we start by having Vanguard in, telling you about the case for passive investments. Already in the first 2 weeks we see that there is a very strong case for that, and Vanguard then tells you how they tell the story in practice. Vanguard is the fastest growing asset manager in the world, and it's very nice to have them, and they tell you their side of the story. Then another thing we will have seen over the first 2 weeks is exchange traded funds. We will have seen that it's a fairly handy instrument, and that means that it solves a lot of the problems of the usual mutual funds, the traditional mutual funds. And as a result, they've been growing like crazy. And the queen of ETFs is called Debbie Fuhr. She is always in the Financial Times commenting on ETFs. She is like the #1 expert on ETF. And she's coming, or I hope she will again, come to class to tell you more about the world of ETFs. Then we spend an entire day on Dimensional Fund Advisor. First half is by doing a case study on them. That's about like how they started the firm in the 80s and 90s, and that's very interesting for a number of reasons. And then we have a guy from Dimensional Fund Advisor coming to tell us where they are today. In the Financial Times on Monday, they were showing that the asset manager that received the most money last year was Vanguard. The third one was Dimensional Fund Advisor. So these two companies are getting a lot of traction, and hopefully that will be clear as you go through the course for why they are really onto something. So then, to kind of balance things out, we are going to in week 5 hear from people who believe in active asset management, who believe in the traditional ways of doing things like selecting stocks and you know. So we have that guy Charles Glaze who will come. There probably will be another one coming, and there's not the affiliation of that guy, but this is like he works for Warburton, which are like Credit Suisse people. They just pinned out to Credit Suisse. Then we're going to talk about some hedge funds. There we have 2 women who will come, one from State Street, one from a small new hedge fund, and an alum. And they're going to tell you about, you know, the case for active management, but long and short, i.e. hedge funds. The week after that, we have Yaz from JP Morgan, who has a kind of robot hedge funds, also called alternative beta or alternative risk premia. Will be clear by then. And he will give a more sobering view on hedge funds. Then usually I manage to get Han Richards, but she changed jobs recently. She became CEO of M&G. She came when she was CIO of Aberdeen. I'm trying to reach out to her, see if she would come again. She's amazing. She's a big defender of active management, and it would be great to hear from her. But if she cannot come, something else will get there. Then we talk about how different investors around the world invest. We'll talk about the Yale model of investing, the Canadian model of investing, the Asian model of investing, what are these big institutional investors nowadays doing, and what is hot on the agenda, etc. And then we have a bit of like a debriefing session where like we have a lot of Q&A. We think about what has been said the previous weeks. We reflect on that. We have a debate. We may talk a bit about fintech as well, an ethics issue in asset management. So this would be like Q&A. Then we skip a class. We skip a week, and then one piece of coursework you have is a group work where you have to answer some questions about the case study I wrote about Queen's College here in Oxford, Queen's College Endowment, and you have to look into that and answer the questions that currently the investment committees have on the table, and then you submit your group coursework at the end of week 7, and then on week 9 you have a panel of experts that give you feedback on your coursework and tell you how in practice this would have been handled. I'm quite confident I would get again Stuart Jarvis from BlackRock and Adina Grigoriou, who's at FinTech doing asset management, asset allocation, and Fons Lüth from Russell usually comes. Hela, I'm not sure. And then we close the course on something, a bit of a game. So I told you about your group coursework. There is an individual piece of coursework which will be a written exam, pretty short, but it will be an exam that will just ask you questions about the things that we have covered in class. So it may ask you questions like, you know, what do you know about mutual funds? What do you know about the performance of mutual funds? What do you know about how would you compare active versus passive management, etc. So that's the course in a nutshell. I hope I answered all the questions. It is usually an oversubscribed course, so you may want to bid some points if you are interested. And the course should happen on Tuesday afternoons. See you then. Bye bye.